Another concept of the time value of money we are going to look at is the IRR function. The IRR function, known as the internal rate of return function, it is used in calculating the rate at which the cost of capital is equal to the rate of return. In other words, the IRR function is the rate at which the cost of capital is equal to the rate of return from a specific project. Let us do a little bit of explanation. The IRR function is that rate in which the amount, the cost, when a firm borrows money, when a firm borrows funds to invest in a particular project, the fund is being borrowed at a particular rate known as the cost. The cost could be 10% per annum. The firm might be asked to pay 10% for the borrowed fund. When this amount of money is invested into a particular project, the project will yield returns to the firm. The project might be a project that will last for a period of 5 years. When such amount of money is invested into this particular project, the project will yield returns to the firm for the first year, the second year, the third year, the fourth year, and the fifth year. Now, the rate at which the project yields return to the firm will be compared with the cost of borrowing such a fund in order for the firm to decide either to borrow such fund or not to borrow such fund. That is, before the firm will borrow such fund and invest into a particular project, the firm will look at the amount of money that is borrowing. Let's assume the firm wants to borrow 100,000 naira, and the amount of money the 100,000 naira will yield if invested into a particular project within that period of time. The firm will compare the cost of the project, as the cost outlay, and the returns of the project. If the returns of the project is higher than the cost of the project, then the firm may decide to invest into that particular project. But if the cost of the project, that is 100,000 naira, the firm wants to borrow and invest into that particular project, if that 100,000 is invested into that particular project, at the end of the day, that particular project will yield a return of 100,000 naira. Then the firm will have no benefit or no profit at the end of the period of such a project. That's because 100,000 naira was invested into the project, and 100,000 naira was the return from the project. So the project yields a return of 100,000 naira to the firm, which was the amount of money that was invested into that particular project. So in other words, the firm has no benefit or no profit in such type of investment. So that interest rate that equates the cost of borrowing that 100,000 naira with the interest rate of the return of the project is called the internal rate of return. The internal rate of return is that rate that equates the cost of capital with the cost of return from a project. That is why the internal rate of return is defined here as the IRR function calculates the internal rate of return of a series of cash flow. It is used in calculating the internal rate of return of a series of cash flows. The cash flows must be equally spaced in time and in order, just like the NPV function. The time the time or the order in which the cash outflow occurs is very, very important in performing the analysis using the IRR function. The first cash outflow has to be the first in the analysis. The second cash outflow has to follow. The third cash outflow has to follow. The order in which the cash outflow occurs has to be used in performing the analysis. Also, the time is very, very important, and the order in which the cash outflow occurs is very, very important. Also, they must include at least one positive value and one negative value, just like the NPV function. The NPV function must include one positive value and one negative value. The negative value could be the cash outflow, the initial cash outflow, or the initial cash outlay that is invested into the particular project in year 0. That is the amount of money, investable fund, that was invested into the project. The syntax for the IRR function is similar to that of the NPV function, only that in the NPV function, we have the rate at which the cash flow will be discounted. Unlike the NPV function, the IRR function has a rate which is known as the guess. It is called the guess. It is the rate at which the cost of capital will be equal to the rate of return. So the first input variable argument in the IR function is the values. The values represent the cash flow, which could be negative or positive values, and they have to be in a range or in an array. Excuse me. Why the guess? The guess is the interest rate in which the financial analyst thinks or imagine that the cost of capital will equate the returns of investment. But the guess is optional. If omitted, Excel will assume 10%. If omitted, Excel is going to assume what? 10%. Then Excel will try to find the answer accurate to within 0.00001% using an iterative technique to look for the interest rate that will equate the cost of capital and the cost of investment. So let's look at a particular financial case in which we can make use of the IRR function. Case 1. If a firm has a project of 30,000 naira in cost for times 0, which will yield benefit of 15,000 naira each for 3 years. A firm has a project of 30,000 naira. That's the cost of the project to invest into that particular project, or to establish such a project, or to start such a project. The firm needs 30,000 naira, and the benefit or the returns from such a project is 15,000 naira for each year for a period of 3 years. That's the lifespan of the project is 3 years. So for each year, the project will yield 15,000 naira. Note that the cash flow or the cash outflow need not to be equal before we can make use of the IRR function, the internal rate of return function. The cash outflow or the cash inflow needs not to be equal, like in this particular financial case. Because in this particular financial case, the cash inflow or the return from the project is 15,000 naira from the first year of the project to the last year of the project. We are expected to calculate the exact and approximate internal rate of return. Now, this is a particular financial problem. Is this project economically viable or efficient given the required rate or prevailing interest rate of 21%? Now, we are asked if this project is viable. It is advisable for the firm to invest into this particular project. We'll do more of this when we'll be treating project analysis and evaluation. There we will be making use of the various time value of money concept we've learned in making decisions for a firm. If a firm should invest in a particular project, and why should a firm not invest in that particular project? If a firm has project A, B, C, and D, which of this particular project should a firm invest its money into, and which of the particular project should a firm not invest money into? We are going to, when we come to that particular topic of project analysis and evaluation, I'm going to treat that deeply. But for here, we are asked this particular question, we are going to focus on it. So the first thing we need to do is to understand this particular problem. The first thing we are asked in this problem is to calculate the exact and approximate internal rate of return. That's the rate at which the cost of capital will be equal to the returns of the investment. Now, look at this investment is 15,000 naira for the 3 years. For the 3 years is what? 45,000 naira. And this project is what? 30,000 naira. So we are looking at which point, at which rate. So now what we are asked here is to look at the rate at which the benefit will be equal to the cost. Now, we can see that at the second year of the project, the first year, the project gives a return of 15,000 naira. The second year, project gives a return of 15,000 naira. That's 30,000 naira. At the end of the second year, the benefit of the project is equal to the cost of the project. So at what rate will this occur? That is what we are asked to look for. And secondly, we are asked also to carry out a financial decision. If such a project is economically viable or not economically viable. That is it advisable for the firm to invest its financial resources into this particular project? For the firm to invest into this particular project or not invest into this particular project? So, that's a cash out. The cash out, the output is to calculate the approximate and the exact internal rate of return, and the input variable are the 30,000 naira and the 15,000 naira cash outflow, the 30,000 naira cash outflow. So the next thing we are going to do is to input this data into our Excel spreadsheet to enable us to calculate the internal rate of return. Now we can see we've input the values into the particular cell, the years, the first year, the year 0, that's the year in which the 30,000 naira was invested as a cash outlay. Excuse me. The first year, which is 15,000 naira, that's the cash inflow. A cash inflow of 15,000 naira occurs throughout the year of the project. Note again that this cash inflow need not to be equal. Then the first cash inflow could be 15,000 naira, the next cash inflow could be 30,000 naira, and the third year cash inflow could be 5,000 or 7,000 naira. The cash inflow needs not to be equal. Now we have to calculate the internal rate of return. Here you can see that we spaced this value. I decided to space this value for eligibility sake so that it will be easily identified. Each cash flow can be identified. I don't want the work to be clumsy. But if we're using the XMPV function, we don't need to space it this way. Or the other version of the internal rate of return, we will not space this analysis this way. So now let's type equals to and type the IRR function. Always remember to read this brief description as I said earlier. Let's double click this. Now look at the information Excel requires from us in order to perform this analysis. Now, these are the information required by Excel in order to perform this analysis. The first information is the values. We have to provide the values for Excel in order for Excel to perform this analysis. So click on the cell for the cash outlay. Then we drag it to the third year of the project. Then the cash inflow of 15,000 naira and type a bracket. Then the next Excel requires what is the guest. Now, the guest, recall, we could decide to omit the guest. If omitted, Excel will assume 10%. Now we are looking at at what rate will this cash inflow equal to the cash outflow. That is what the internal rate of return is used to look for. This cash outflow, this amount of money invested into this particular project by this firm, excuse me, by this firm, this fund was borrowed from one of the sources of funds at a cost, but we are not given the cost of the capital, the cost in which the amount of money was borrowed, or the amount of money will be borrowed, because the firm is about to make a decision either to borrow this sum of money to invest into this particular project, or not to borrow this some money to invest into this particular project. So they are the cost. We do not know the cost at which the firm is going to raise this 30,000 naira. But now then we are interested to see at what rate will that cost that the firm we used in raising this 20,000 naira, that will be collected from the firm in raising this 30,000 naira, and the return of the investment. At what point will this be equal? Now, after that, the guess is optional. We could decide if we leave or make the guess. Either we assume 10%. So let's try bracket close and press enter. You see, Excel gives us an interest rate of 23%. This tells us that if the cost of capital, or if the firm wants to borrow this fund of 30,000 naira to invest into this particular project, if the cost at which the firm is going to raise this 30,000 naira will be higher than 23%, then it is not advisable for the firm to borrow such amount of money, because the return from this particular project is 23%. So any cost less than 23% to raise up this 30,000 naira in order to invest it in this particular project, the firm can raise the fund from such particular source of capital. And secondly, the firm can decide to invest into that particular project. Now, the other question now says that this is the exact internal rate of return. We don't have approximate. If we want to calculate the approximate internal rate of return, we have to include a decimal point in our analysis. So, that is approximate internal rate of return. We have only exact internal rate of return of 23%. Then the other question that says, is this project economically viable or not, given the prevailing interest rate of 21%? That's the interest rate is 21%. In other words, the cost to raise this fund of 30,000 naira is 21%. In other words, if the firm wants to borrow the fund of 30,000 naira to invest into this particular project, the cost of raising such fund is 21%. Therefore, is this project economically viable? Is this advisable for the firm to invest its financial resources into this particular project? Is this advisable for the firm to go into this particular business project? Our answer is yes. Since the internal rate of return is higher than the cost to raise this particular fund, the cost of 21% to raise this particular fund. Therefore, it is advisable for the firm to borrow this particular amount of money. Now, let's include the 10% to this analysis. You see, Excel will give us the same result. Let's include 10%. Everything gives us 21%. Now, we can also decide to include the guest. If the prevailing interest rate is 21%, if the interest rate is 21%, and let's press enter. SST gives us the same result, 23%. This says that it is advisable for the firm to raise this particular capital. So let's make enter. Let's make this 10%. That's a guess of 10%. So we have the guess of 10%. Then, in order to see if this project is economically viable or not, we have to compare this 21% with the prevailing interest rate of 21%, and our conclusion is that it is economically viable for the firm to invest into this particular project.